You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The name of tonight's tale is Palimpsest Video. Dustin was just about the age one had to decide what they were going to be for the rest of their life. He worked at the video store in the center of town. The store was a blessing and a curse, an albatross and a life preserver all at once. Dustin was a doughy 22-year-old who had worked at Palimpsest Video since he was 8 years old. It started as a cute little thing he did on the weekends for a few hours and eventually dovetailed into a legit part-time job that earned him a little cash in high school, to a full-time stopgap that was supposed to be used as a stepping stone to something greater. At 21, it was clear he just didn't have anything else going on, and the part-time job that held him down as a teenager barely got his rent paid as an adult. When the last owner, Bill, died, he had no one else in his life to give the shop to, so he handed down the Pal to Dustin, because who else? Being the manager of the store was hardly an upgrade from employee, seeing that it was more work and almost the same pay. Though it was not the type of business that was likely to take off anytime soon, it was at least an excuse Dustin could use to tell himself he was doing something with his life. Dustin liked his job, yet there was always something in the back of his mind that told him he was wasting his life, dying a slow death just like the media he sold. Ever since he was a child, he loved movies, even though it was seriously in decline even then. There was something tactile and real about VHS tapes. The way they inhabited a room, immersed you. When he was amongst the walls of VHS tapes, it was as if he was in a place that was alive, brimming with the collective receipts of human creativity. This was not something Dustin could put into words, unless you counted the brief emo poetry phase he went through in his mid-teens. Dustin half-watched John Carpenter's The Thing on a small CRT television with a small mountain of videotapes stacked on the counter. One by one, he fed the tapes to a rewinder, because when the tapes were returned, they weren't always started from the beginning. Dustin zoned out. A static flicker sparked across the CRT TV. Every time he hit the pause button, it started to whir. The image on the screen rippled in a blue mosaic. The image stretched and pulled. Dustin could hear in the distortion a weak voice. This was what drew Dustin's attention. Being an expert on every sound a tape could make, and when a tape made a sound he didn't understand, this usually meant one thing. The VCR was eating it. Dustin hustled to the VCR on the counter and pressed eject. The VCR held the tape hostage. "Ah, shit," muttered Dustin. He really liked this movie and didn't want to lose it. He fumbled under the counter to unplug the VCR to give him precious time to retrieve it. When his head ducked under the counter, he heard through wobbling distortion. Hey, you hear that?" said the character Jack Burton. "Don't touch it, Jack. It might be a trap," he could have sworn he heard Wayne say. Dustin pulled the plug. He knew he didn't hear what he heard. He watched Big Trouble in Little China hundreds of times, and he had never heard Jack Burton or Wayne say those things. He carefully unscrewed the frame of the VCR and carefully extracted the tape. He fed the hungry VCR a new tape. The FBI warning appeared, then the song Back in Time blared. Young Marty McFly appeared. Marty gets up in Doc Brown's lab, notices he's late, and rushes out of the apartment. Dustin squinted his eyes. This was not how the movie opened. Marty played his guitar and got blown across the room. Dustin went to eject the tape to see if it was some sort of behind-the-scenes take or a director's cut he hadn't heard of. As he reached for the eject button, a static bar flailed. Through the hazy winter blue of static, eyes seemed to open. Something that passed for an indistinct mouth spoke through the TV. Dustin adjusted the tracking, but the out-of-focus image fought to maintain its unorthodox shape. He heard the image speaking in the garbled static. It said, "Hungry." Or at least, These were the words he thought it said. The image of the movie struggled to assert itself even if the static tried its damnedest to take hold. Dustin ejected the tape and inspected it from every conceivable angle until he settled on switching tapes completely. Though it didn't quite make perfect sense, maybe someone tried to tape over the movie but couldn't make it past the right protected tab. He fed the VCR the Akira Kurosawa movie Rashomon. Dustin attempted to go back to rewinding. After approximately 20 minutes, the video began to cut to scenes with characters that did not typically have the spotlight. Maybe it was just him. The movie itself was about a death as told through many different points of view. The movie once again began to build a thick wall of hazy static. This time, Dustin didn't dismiss it as nothing. Dustin heard the static say,
"I'm hungry."
Dustin turned off the television completely and the VCR. There was a moment of silence before the room rumbled, as if angered. The walls of videotape shuddered and vibrated. Dustin ran to the doorway. Clearview was in Illinois, so it wasn't prone to earthquakes. After a moment, the rumbling stopped. He exited the dark shop to see if there was anyone else that had experienced what he had. But to his surprise, no one seemed to bear any urgency but him. Being a student of film, Dustin knew that this was part of any horror movie that the protagonist either doubled down and accepted something was off or ignored it and wrote it out until it was too late to do anything about it. Dustin wanted to believe he was the former and not the latter. Dustin went to the office, a place he rarely went because every time he did, he envisioned Bill sitting there. Even though it had been a month and change, a part of him felt as if he were waiting for Bill to come back. He rifled through the things Bill had left behind. Dustin didn't know how to do the books and the legal side of this business yet. He searched Bill's old desk first. He found a revolver, a joint that looked older than he was, and a few current bills that needed to be attended to. In the last drawer on the bottom, there was an envelope, carefully shuffled under random invoices. The letter clearly had his name on it, from Bill to Dustin. Dustin rested his head in his hands and took a moment before he moved on. When he looked up, he saw faint movement. Something shuffled past the door and kept moving. He had locked up for the night, or at least he thought so. Dustin wasn't what one might call a gun guy, but better that he be the one that had one than didn't. He took the revolver and snuck into the lobby. He saw a creature dragging its feet as if a leg was injured. It looked like a deconstructed man, a corpse taken apart then put back together, then dipped in bog water. The thing was so unreal, he didn't think it was smart to shoot first, only to find out it was a man doing cosplay. The thing turned as if sensing the living. Dustin squinted.
"I hunger."
The beast groaned. Dustin looked at the thing charging him, and in the split second it made its awkward lunge, he realized something. This wasn't just a random thing, but the toxic waste zombie from Return of the Night of the Living Dead. Though Dustin had a revolver in his hand, he truly believed it would do nothing. He could use the precious little time he had futilely shooting at a thing that couldn't be shot while it ripped him limb from limb. But he instead scrambled behind the counter and retrieved a Louisville Slugger. The thing clumsily but persistently shuffled after him. It went a bit too fast and overextended itself. With one thunderous swing, Dustin physically knocked its head off when it attempted to stand. The body stood, independent of its head. Dustin pulled one of the walls of VHS tapes down and pinned the thing to the floor. He had seen Return of the Night of the Living Dead numerous times, but there was never a time he'd ever imagined any part of it was true. Dustin took a breath. He allowed himself a moment to wrap his head around what was happening. Before he got too far into the process, the television on the counter turned itself on, and the blue static appeared in the abstract form of a man's face.
"I hunger,"
it said louder, rumbling the room. Dustin went into Bill's old office, grabbed the letter, then quickly returned to the lobby, which was now in disarray. He sat behind the counter and read Bill's letter. "Dear Dustin, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Yeah, I know it sucks, and you wouldn't know what to do without me. Well, let me just get to it. I don't know when you'll find this letter or how I died, so I'm not sure how much of this you'll believe, but I'm sure you will before too long. Years ago in 1982, the demon was defeated in this video store by my teacher's teacher, Rulin. The demon was hiding in the store clerk's body. Without getting too into things you won't be able to get right away, Rulin bound the demon, who wasn't no bitch, I might add. He is one of the first beings of creation. So Rulin couldn't just bind him to this store in a magic circle. He would eventually free himself, regardless of what we did. Rulin somehow fractured the demon's memories and consciousness into the shop, so he is partially trapped in fiction, unable to discern who he is completely. These stories, these fictions are all that keeps him from returning. For the most part, he is quiet, but from time to time he has hunger flares, and if and when this happens, he will do whatever is in his power to take a soul to devour. Since it does not fully remember what he is, it will take on the form of the fictions it's trapped in. Now, Dustin, this is the hard part, the part I had hoped I could ease you into softly. If you do not allow him to feed, he will become increasingly more powerful until you do. If you do not feed him a soul, he will escape to find one freeing himself from this prison. I regret never having the time to teach you, but truth be told, I myself was never much of a sorcerer. I left you all the tomes and gear I could to help you along, but in the end, it's up to you to decide if this is worth it. So, take the money and run, or deal with it. I'm sorry I'm dead, dude, and I'm sorry I had to put this all on you. Dustin put the letter on the counter. He looked down at the zombie still struggling to escape. Was this his life now, or was he going to get as far away from this place as he could? He had worked here for 14 years and never had so much as a suspicion that something was going on here, so maybe he could manage this shop and live a relatively normal life. He went back into the office and pushed the heavy desk away. There he found the lock safe in the floor. When he opened it using the random numbers on the back of Bill's letters, he found ancient tomes and another letter from Bill. The shop rumbled. It hungered. Dustin was either going to have to become a mage somehow or feed this beast. But even if he did try, there was no way he'd figure it out fast enough before it took what it needed. Either way it went, he'd have to decide to feed it someone, or it would find someone on its own. Dustin supposed he had yet another excuse for why he would never be a success, but he couldn't say he was doing nothing with his life. You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed the trip.